Thank you so much for talking with me today, Phil Diamond.
No worries.
Just curious how permaculture has changed your life.
Oh, that's a loaded question right up. Well, it just gave me a different focus. My background was commercial media for about 20 years before I got into permaculture. One thing about permaculture is that it's pretty honest. You know, in commercial broadcasting, that's something you can't always get. And nature doesn't live on lies. Nature tells it. Nature, you know, if it's happy with you, it'll go and it'll live and prosper. Not always, but most of the time. Whereas in commercial media, there's all these different nuances and all the rest of it. There's a lot of fluff about it. Permaculture is pretty grounding, and I think anything in nature is pretty grounding. Physical benefits, it has great mental health benefits. During the crisis that we're going through, I think permaculture has given me that insulation of, well, I know I'm on the right track. There are alternate ways of living and alternate ways of thinking. And it also spurned my interest towards the natural things. And since I've done conservation land management at TAFE and environmental monitoring, and to mix it up a little bit, I did a year of civil engineering as well, because things have to be constructed and it gives you a good basis for that sort of stuff. Permaculture changed my life because it gave me something to believe in that was rock solid. You can enhance nature, you can live with nature, you can also destroy nature. And that's something that I think is rampant right throughout the world, a lack of respect for nature. Because we came from nature. Nature, you know, is the thing that keeps us here. It provides the air, the water, the soil, the living processes. I think in the modern world, we've sort of detached ourselves from that. Permaculture has a really strong ethical basis that a lot of people can learn from and adapt and adopt in their own lives. So is that wild enough?
Yeah, that's wild enough.
I did my PDC in 2000, and since then, permaculture is becoming more mainstream. You see it talked about in Gardening Australia, people like Costa and others who are adopting it and then bringing it into the mainstream. And so there's a growing awareness there. And I think with climate change and species extinction and things like that, people are starting to go, well, I think we're on the wrong track and things have to radically change. And I think that there again is something about permaculture that I really love, in that it's based on science. It's based on tradition, tested rationales and thinking and processes. And it's easy to start off slow and yet embrace it more and more into your life. And it's not just growing your own food. It comes down to everything you do. It's like I'm sitting in a house here that most of it's recycled. They're the sort of things that open up your eyes doing permaculture. And you don't have to do permaculture to understand that we have problems with the species extinction and resources, you know, declining and all the rest of it. You do adapt it into your own home space, you know, and so I've got the chickens, I've got bees, I've got an orchard, I've got ponds, I've got living systems here. I've been here for about 25 years and it was just a lawn. There were 3 fruit trees here when I first got here. Now I've got tens of trees and there's an appreciation for climatic systems that comes into it as well. When I was on television, I was a weather guy. You know, I'm not a trained meteorologist, but it certainly gave me an appreciation for climate and weather systems, and particularly for where I was broadcasting in, which was Western New South Wales. And I'd do the dam levels, you know, at the end of each day, you know, and during drought periods, you're talking about, well, there's another blue sky day tomorrow and it doesn't look like the dams are going to fill up anytime soon, all that sort of stuff. And it makes you aware of how much climate and weather sort of dictates our economy, our thought processes, our commercial progress as well. If farmers haven't got water, they haven't got stock, they haven't got food to give us or to sell us, you know. Doing that also gave me a great appreciation for climatic systems and weather and how we're changing them. Doing permaculture blitzes and working on community gardens and things like that also gives you that social network of like-minded people. And it empowers people. And I think that's a great thing for a community where a lot of people are on their phones and looking down and not involved in others. Whereas if you get in somewhere, if you do a permaculture blitz and you transform somebody's yard, there's something tangible at the end of the day that you can go, well, you know, I helped change somebody's life or achieve a small step towards a dream that they might have, doing a tree change or just making themselves aware of what's going on around them in the natural world.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much for speaking with me, Phil. So you have a background as a weather reporter. How do you see mainstream reacting to the very real threat of increased firestorms? People seem to me to be frightened of trees, yet they don't seem to understand that the trees help mitigate the terrible heat. Where do you see that going?
Totally. I think I think our land clearing laws in this country and this state particularly are just abysmal. We're removing trees at a vast rate. My hope is that people are starting to become more aware of that, but also a lack of respect. I mean, if you go out west, it's just bare plains. You don't see trees for miles. It's a major threat to the whole planet. We have the virus. That's bad enough. But if you add on top of that the devastating effects long-term of climate change, the virus is a small fry problem because the virus only affects us, whereas climate change affects every living system.
Yeah.
And to have a strong, steady, going forward-thinking human race, you need clean, healthy environments. Otherwise, you're just pissing up against a wall. Really, it's nice to have a jet ski, but if it means that there's a sacrifice made in the natural world for you to have that jet ski, you've got to start to reevaluate your priorities and ethics. A rough estimate of the commercials I've read is 10,000 commercials for products I didn't know. I hosted kid shows and I'm handing out McDonald's vouchers. Now we've got an obesity problem around the country. I'm going, well, I'm probably just a little bit of that, influence, but still, it's nothing I would do nowadays because I have a changed respect. It's strange that the politicians will listen to the scientists and the immunologists in regards to how to best tackle the virus, but turn a blind eye to the climate scientists who are talking about climate change and the effects on our ecosystems. And after the virus, pick up our ways that we had before the virus. Emissions are going to spike again, and that just leads us on the same path that we were on before, which is really to oblivion if we keep going the way we are. So that's where the ethics comes into it. It's nearly a bit of self-preservation. Not just my future. It's the future of, your offspring. And yet there are people who have kids who don't seem to factor that into their lifestyles or their beliefs. And that's the ethical basis of it, or part of it anyway. Yeah.
So you've been involved with Landcare, did you say?
I did 6 years at TAFE of conservation, land management and environmental monitoring and technology. And so using that knowledge, I'm also on a committee for Dendrobium Mine, which is up behind us here. And I've been on that for over 10 years. I don't think I would be as fired up against the mine if I didn't have that background in the environmental studies that I did, because it's easy to go in there and see the rocks cracked after they do longwall mining in our catchment. But it's the ongoing effects, the long-term effects of that in regards to water depletion going into our dams, ecosystems drying up, upland swamps are parched, they get a rain spike, and then they drain pretty much within 24, 48 hours. And I see all this information, it's all documented, it's all there, but it frustrates me so much because we know we're doing the wrong thing, but under the auspices of the state government and their legislation, the mine can do what they're doing to a point. And Blind Freddy can tell you that it's a situation where no one is going to win except for the pockets of the miners themselves, because we're moving on to a different topic, but these are the sort of things that keep me fired up when it comes to the ethical thing of permaculture as well, in that if you continue to do longwall mining in the catchment, we're losing millions of litres a day. Estimations are 25 million litres a day lost from the system because of mining in our catchment. Not all because of Dendrobium mine, that's about 6 to 7 megalitres a day lost out of the system because of that. And yet yesterday, the state government announced that the tariffs on Sydney Water, so anybody purchasing water from Sydney Water in Sydney, Wollongong sort of areas, our tariffs will go down if the dams are above 60%. Once they go down, the dam capacity goes down below that, the tariff goes from about, I think it's about $2.11 a thousand litres of water, and then jumps to about $3.15, around that, per thousand litres of water once the dams fall below 60. Well, what we're doing at the moment is we're slowing down the amount of water that's going into the dams anyway because of the longwall mining. And we've got a desal plant in Sydney that we're all paying for to keep it going when the dam levels go down. And yet these guys up here are not getting stiff penalties for the water they're losing out of the system. And it comes down to an ethical thing. That's why I'm on that committee, because I can see that what's going on is, it's not corrupt under the strictest terms, but on an ethical basis, it's totally corrupt. Yeah.
Mm.
In addition to that is another 40 square kilometres of upland swamps, of creeks, of ecosystems, koala habitat that will be damaged through the longwall mines.
Mm.
And there are ways to mitigate that, but the mine doesn't want to do that. If you narrow the width of a longwall from 305 metres, which is currently what they're mining now, and you cut that down to maybe 200 to 150 metres wide, you don't get the cracking at the top to the same extent as you do with a 305 metre wide longwall. But they, in their submission for areas 5 and 6, all they've done is planning for all those longwalls in that 40 square kilometres to be 305 metres wide. And I say to them, have you modelled anything a lot less than that? Oh, it wouldn't be economic for us to do that. Well, that's a load of shit, because one of the mines currently working in the area up here out of Helensburgh mines their longwalls at less than 200 metres wide. And they're profitable. And that's Peabody. So, yeah, there's great arguments against what they're doing, but they just don't want to move. And so it comes down to state government giving the okay or not to them moving into this areas 5 and 6. And the other thing is, if you go into the catchment, it's a $44,000 fine just to walk in the catchment. But you can mine underneath it and stuff it forever, because once you've longwalled an area like this up here, which is Hawkesbury sandstone and claystone, and then you've got the coal mesh and all the rest of it, once you've cracked all that strata of 300 metres from your working down here to the surface, it's cracked forever.
Yeah.
And it's all just riddled with cracks that all leach water through into the dam workings. And then that water has to be pumped out, and it's waste water, whereas it was water, potable water, potentially potable water for our water supply. And 1.5 million people supplied by the dams up behind us here in Mount Kembla. Mm-hmm. And that all comes back to me joining that committee because I had the time, and also I had the interest, I had the study, but it was also the ethics that have been given to me by permaculture. To be involved, to be concerned, to be a part of the system, and to change the system, tap it into place so that we don't do things that are bad for us in the long term. There again, it goes down to the jet ski. Maybe just hire one for a day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Phil.